Adis pulled the baby from the tree. Not gently, not because she was careless but because her hands were shaking so badly that gentle was not available to her in that moment. She pulled the child from the hollow of the ancient Iroko tree with both hands and held it against her chest and stood in the middle of the forest at 5 in the morning and made a sound she had never made before in her life. Not a scream. Not a cry. Something older than both. The baby was warm. That was the thing that broke her open completely, not the finding, not the impossibility of it, but the warmth. 15 years of cold empty arms and this child was warm, impossibly, completely warm, wrapped in leaves that had no business being as soft as cloth, breathing with the small rapid certainty of a life that had only just begun and already knew it was entitled to continue. Adis held the baby and the forest held its breath around her. She was 41 years old. She had been married for 15 years. She had buried 3 pregnancies and survived one husband's cruelty and another husband's abandonment and the particular violence of a village that had decided her empty womb was a judgment from God and treated her accordingly. She had come to the forest to fetch firewood. She had not come to find a miracle. But the miracle had not asked her permission. If you have ever received something you stopped believing you deserved, drop a comment below. And if you are new here, subscribe right now, because what happens when Adis carries that baby home will shake you to your core. The village of Omikat sat in a valley between 2 hills in the way that old villages do, as if it had not been built so much as grown, the compound spreading outward from a central point like rings from a stone dropped in water. It had been there for 200 years and it had its own logic and its own laws and its own understanding of the world, and one of the things it understood, the thing it had decided about Adis Mosu, was that a woman who could not carry a child was incomplete. Not broken. Not sad. Incomplete. As if she were a sentence without an ending. A pot without a bottom. Something that had been started and then abandoned. It had not always been said cruelly. The first few years of her first marriage, when the pregnancies ended and the doctors in the city used words like unexplained and recurrent and we're sorry, people had been kind. Condolence kind, which is its own particular flavor, warm enough to feel like support and cool enough to feel like pity if you paid close attention. By the 5th year, the kindness had acquired a sharper edge. Have you tried the pasta in Nui? My cousin's wife had the same problem and drank a certain herb preparation. Sometimes these things are spiritual. You should go back to your people and find out what happened. By the 8th year, when her first husband Chokuma had taken a second wife, a young woman who became pregnant within 3 months and delivered a boy on a Tuesday morning as if to make the point decisively, the kindness had been replaced by something that didn't pretend to be anything other than what it was. Avoidance. Whisper. The particular cruelty of women who passed her at the borehole and found reasons to end the conversation quickly. Her mother-in-law, Chokuma's mother, a woman named Momachidra who smelled of snuff and had opinions about everything, had come to Adis' room one evening and sat on the edge of the bed and said, without any preparation, you should release him. It is not fair to keep a man tied to an empty house. Adis had looked at the woman. It is not my house that is empty, she had said quietly. It is your understanding. Momachidra had left. But the words had stayed, and words like that compound over years until they become a weight you carry so constantly you forget you are carrying it. She had left Chokuma's house in the 10th year. Not because he asked her to, he was too conflict-averse for the direct request, but because she could no longer live inside a space that had decided what she was and would not be persuaded otherwise. She had moved back to her father's compound. Her father, a retired teacher named Mr. Nosu, had received her without ceremony and without question and had made up her old room and said, over dinner that first night, you are home. Eat. 2 years later, a man named Obichina from a village 3 valleys over had come to see her. He had been sent by a mutual acquaintance who described Adis as a good woman with a difficult history. Obichina was 40, widowed, with 2 grown children who lived in the city. He came with kola nut and a directness that Adis found, after years of avoidance and whisper, almost shocking. "I know about your history," he said at their first meeting, in her father's parlor, with her father in the next room pretending not to listen. "I am not coming to you because I need children. I have children. I am coming because I was told you are a good woman and I am tired of an empty house for different reasons than yours." Addis had looked at him for a long time. "And when people talk," she said. "People have always talked," Obichina said. "I have never found that their talking changed anything important." She had married him 14 months later. It had been, for 2 years, the closest thing to peace she had known in a long time. Obichina did not look at her womb as a problem to be solved. He looked at her as a person, which was rarer than it should have been and which she received with the careful gratitude of someone who has gone without water long enough to understand its value. But the village of Omikat did not share Obiekina's view. The village of Omikat had known Addis for 41 years and had formed its opinion, and the opinion was not generous. "She has brought the same curse to this new husband. 2 marriages and nothing. It is not coincidence. I feel sorry for Obichina. He is a good man. He deserves better." Addis heard every word. Omikat was not a large place and sound traveled efficiently. She woke up every morning and she carried it and she did not let it show, which cost her something every single day, a small daily withdrawal from a place inside her that had once been full and was now, after 15 years, running low. She was running low on the morning she went to the forest for firewood. She had been going to the Egu forest since childhood. It sat on the far slope of the eastern hill, dense and old, the kind of forest that had been there long enough to have its own silence, not the silence of emptiness but the silence of something that has decided it does not need to be loud to be present. She went alone. She went early, before the village woke fully, because the early morning forest was hers in a way that nothing in the village was. It did not know her history, did not carry an opinion about her womb, did not look at her with the particular mix of pity and judgment she had learned to navigate the way you navigate bad road. She had gone that morning with a rope for bundling firewood and the low-grade exhaustion of a woman who had slept badly and woken to a morning that felt, before it had even started, like an argument she had already lost. The forest received her the way it always did, without comment. She had been gathering for 20 minutes when she heard it. Not a sound exactly. More like the suggestion of a sound, the way a presence announces itself at the edge of perception before it becomes definite. She stopped. She stood very still. The forest around her was doing its ordinary morning things, birds, the shift of light through leaves, somewhere the sound of water. And then, underneath all of it, something else. She turned. The Iroko tree was massive. It had been old when her grandmother was young, its trunk wider than 3 men standing with arms outstretched, its bark deeply grooved and dark. She had passed it hundreds of times. She knew it the way you know landmarks, automatically, without examination. But this morning there was something in the hollow at the base of the trunk. She moved toward it slowly. The leaves were first, the cluster of large soft leaves, folded with a precision that was not the work of wind. They were arranged, deliberately, like a nest or a wrapping. And from inside the arrangement came the sound she had heard, faint, rhythmic, undeniable. Breathing. She knelt. She opened the leaves. And looked into the face of a newborn child. The baby was perhaps a day old. Perhaps less. Its eyes were closed, its fists were curled at its chest, its face carried the concentrated, slightly outraged expression of all newborns, as if existence had been sprung on it without adequate preparation. Addis knelt in the forest floor and looked at this child for what felt like a very long time. Then her hands moved. She did not decide to pick it up. Her hands simply moved, and she was already holding the child before the decision caught up with the action. The warmth hit her first. Then the weight, the specific, irreplaceable weight of a living child, which is different from the weight of any other thing. Then the sound, the breathing against her neck as she instinctively pulled the baby to her chest and felt the small rapid heartbeat against her own. She sat in the forest and held the child for a long time. Her mind was doing many things at once. Asking questions she had no answers to: who, how, why, what does this mean? Running through practical thoughts: a hospital, the police, a proper authority. Feeling things that had no name in any language she knew, feelings that had been sealed up for 15 years and were now cracking open in the cold forest morning like soil after the first rain. She stood up. She left the firewood. She walked out of the forest with the child against her chest and headed for home, and the forest watched her go without offering any explanation. Her husband was in the compound when she arrived. Obichina had been about to leave for his farm, and he turned at the sound of her footsteps and looked at his wife's face and then at the bundle against her chest and then back at her face. He said nothing for a long moment. "Adis," he said. "I found her," Adis said. "In the forest. In the Iroko tree. She was alone. She is real, Obichina. She is warm and real and she is breathing." Obichina crossed the compound in 6 steps and looked at the child. He looked for a long time. "A baby," he said. It was not quite a statement and not quite a question. "Yes. In the Iroko tree. Yes." He looked at his wife. Her face was something he had never seen before, raw and open and terrified and more alive than he had seen it in the 2 years of their marriage, as if something locked had been forced and the light was coming through whether it was ready or not. "Come inside," he said. They sat in the parlor with the baby between them on the mat. The child had woken during the walk home and had made her opinion of the situation known with the full force of her lungs, and Adis had rocked and shushed and done things she had never done before with a fluency that surprised her, as if the knowledge had been stored somewhere in her body, waiting. "We have to report it," Obichina said. "I know. The police. Or the hospital. She needs to be examined." "I know that too. Adis." He looked at her. "What are you thinking?" She looked at the baby. The baby looked back with the unfocused but strangely intent gaze of the very new. "I am thinking," she said slowly, "that I have been empty for 15 years. And this morning the forest put something in my arms." She looked at her husband. "I am not saying it makes sense. I am not saying it doesn't require reporting. I am saying that when I picked her up, something in me that has been closed for 15 years opened. And I do not know how to explain that in a way that sounds reasonable." Obichina was quiet for a long time. "I am not asking you to explain it reasonably," he said finally. "I am asking what you want." She looked at him. "I want to keep her," she said. It was the first time she had said it out loud, and it landed in the room with the weight of something that cannot be unsaid. Obichina looked at the baby. "Then we do it properly," he said. "We report. We cooperate with everything they require. And then we find out what is possible." He paused. "But we do it properly. No shortcuts." "No shortcuts," she agreed. The hospital visit revealed that the baby was approximately 18 hours old. A girl. Healthy, remarkably, completely healthy. No signs of distress or exposure. Fed, as far as the doctor could determine, recently. The doctor, a young man named Dr. Is, who had been on night duty and was now well past his shift, examined the baby 3 times and then looked at Adis. "You found her in a tree," he said. "In a hollow at the base of an Iroko tree." "Yes." "Wrapped in leaves." "Yes, doctor." He looked at the baby. "She is in perfect health." "Which is, given the circumstances," he stopped. "I have been practicing for 8 years. I have never said this about the case before." He looked up. "I cannot explain how she is this healthy after a night in a forest." "Neither can I," Adis said. "The police came." She answered every question fully and without embellishment. She took them to the forest. They examined the Iroko tree and found the leaves, still arranged, which one officer photographed and another touched with an expression of someone who does not want to say what he is thinking. They opened a file. An official search was conducted for the birth mother, notices in the nearby towns, inquiries at hospitals and clinics across 3 local governments. Adiz was told she could serve as a foster carer while the investigation proceeded. She carried the baby home that evening with a foster care form and a bag of supplies from the hospital and the feeling of someone walking very carefully because the thing they are carrying is the most important thing they have ever carried. The village of Omikat found out within 24 hours. Omikat always found out within 24 hours. The reactions came in waves, which is how things always came to Adiz, not one at a time but in simultaneous currents she had to read and navigate at once. The first wave was wonder. Neighbors appearing at the compound gate. Is it true? Yes. A tree. Yes. Can we see? And Adiz standing in the doorway with the baby against her shoulder, and the faces of her neighbors doing complicated things. The second wave was skepticism. Someone abandoned that child and she found it. It is not a miracle, it is a coincidence. Why would anyone leave a baby in a forest? These things happen. It doesn't mean what she is making it mean. The third wave was the one that hurt. Mama Chidra, Chokuma's mother, who had no business being involved in Adiz's life any longer but had never let that stop her, appeared at the compound gate on the second day with 2 women from the prayer group and a face arranged in the expression of concerned intervention. Adiz, she said. We have come because we care. You are welcome to your care elsewhere, Adiz said. This child, we don't know where it came from. We don't know what spirit left it in that tree. You are bringing something unknown into your home and into your husband's life and go home, Mama Chidra, Adiz said. I am saying this as someone who. You said I should release my husband because my house was empty. Now there is a child in my house and you have come to tell me the child is dangerous. She looked at the woman steadily. There is no version of my life that you will find acceptable. I have understood that for a long time. But I no longer require your version. She closed the gate. Inside the compound, Obichana was standing near the doorway having heard every word. His expression was the expression of a man who had just seen his wife do something that confirmed every reason he had chosen her. He said nothing. He went to the kitchen and made tea. 6 weeks passed. The investigation found no birth mother. No hospital records. No missing person report matching any woman who could have delivered an infant in or near the Egu forest on that morning. The search was thorough, genuinely thorough, the officer in charge told them, more thorough than these things usually were because the circumstances were unusual enough to command attention. At the end of 6 weeks, the officer came to their compound. He sat across from Adiz and Obichina and he placed a file on the table between them. The birth mother has not been located, he said. In cases where a found child cannot be reunited with a birth parent after the requisite period and investigation, the foster family may apply for permanent guardianship. He paused. Your conduct throughout this process has been exemplary. You reported immediately. You cooperated fully. You have provided appropriate care. He looked at the baby, who was asleep against Adiz's shoulder. The application for guardianship, if you choose to make it, will be supported by this office. Adiz looked at her husband. Her husband looked at her. We choose to make it, Obichina said. The guardianship was granted 4 months later. On the day the court document was signed and handed across a desk in the magistrate's office in the city, Adiz sat in the car outside afterward with the baby on her lap and the document in her hand, and she did not move for a long time. Obichina sat beside her. Adiz, he said. She looked up. What do you want to name her? He asked. They had been calling her NWA, child, since the beginning, a placeholder that had become its own kind of name. Adiz looked at her daughter. Obiyu Oninai, she said. She is a gift. Then call her Oninai, he said. She looked down at the baby, at Oninai, and the baby opened her eyes in the particular unfocused way of young infants and found Adi's face the way babies find the faces of mothers and held it there. 15 years, Adi said quietly. I know, Obichina said. The village said I was incomplete. The village was wrong, he said simply. The village is often wrong about people. She sat with that. Then she said, the Iroko tree. I have passed that tree my whole life. My grandmother passed it. Her grandmother before her. It has been in that forest for longer than anyone can say. She paused. I don't know why that morning. I don't know why me. I have stopped trying to know. What have you replaced the knowing with? He asked. She looked at her daughter. Gratitude, she said. Just gratitude. Plain and enormous and without conditions. Obichina started the car. They drove home. The village of Omaik eventually did what villages do when a fact becomes undeniable, it adjusted. Not all at once. Not without resistance. But the sight of Adi's walking through Omaik with Onunai on her back, head up, steps unhurried, did something to the collective narrative that no argument could have done. You cannot argue with what you can see. Mama Ezim from the far end of the village, who was 90 years old and had the authority of someone who has outlasted every version of every story, said one morning at the boho, to no one in particular, that child has the eyes of someone who chose where to come. Some children choose. We forget that. Nobody disagreed. It was not a full accounting. It was not justice for 15 years. It was a village taking a small step toward revising a story it had told too confidently for too long. It was something. Adis did not need it to be more than something. She had Oninai. She had Obichina. She had the memory of a forest at 5 in the morning and a warmth in her arms that had arrived without explanation and without apology. She had enough. More than enough. More than she had believed, in the darkest years, that the world was still capable of giving her. Some gifts do not come through doors. Some do not come wrapped in the way we expected or on the timeline we demanded or through the channels we had been told were the only legitimate ones. Some gifts come through forest. Some arrive wrapped in leaves at the base of an ancient tree. Some find exactly the arms that needed them most on exactly the morning those arms were running out of reasons to stay open. Adis had kept her arms open for 15 years. That is not nothing. That is everything. And the forest knew it, even when the village did not. If this story moved something in you, if it reached a place that needed reaching, share it right now with someone who is waiting for something they have stopped believing will come. Leave a comment and tell us what this story made you feel. Like this video so more people can find it. And if you are not yet subscribed, do it now, because every week we bring you a story that finds the part of you that still believes in the impossible. The next one is already here. Don't miss it.